Hi, everybody. This is Carol from the Society of Thoracic Surgeons. This is the Adult Cardiac Surgery Database monthly webinar for March 3rd, 2021. We have an exciting presentation for you today. I have a few updates to provide you from STS, and then we'll have IQVIA updates, and then Dr. Robert Habib, from the director of the STS Research Center, will be presenting on the STS Longitudinal Outcomes Dashboard, which was just released last week. Also on the line with us, I have a few exciting other people with us. We have our team from STS, Leanne Jones, Jane Hahn, Addie Dolan, Emily Conrad, Sydney Clinton, Catherine Holyfield, Melinda Offer, as you know her, and then a special guest is on with us, Joan Michaels from ACC, because we will be talking just briefly about public reporting that is coming for TVT in the very near future. And then from IQVIA, we have the entire IQVIA team. Joe Brower and Melanie Bent will be leading up their presentations, along with Dr. Robert Habib from the STS Research Center to discuss longitudinal. We will take questions, so please be sure to use the Q&A function, and we'll get to them shortly following the presentations. A couple important dates I wanted to point out for adult cardiac. I did add in, this is a very extended timeline, but I wanted to break it down, get down to the Harvest 2 close date, which will be occurring on May 28th. STS, the adult cardiacs, are in red, and I just added in TVT because I know that we have a large crossover between our two groups. So we do have the consenting for TVT public reporting opened on March 1st, and it will be open until April 30th. I'll give you the link to where you can find those data release consent forms that you'll need to discuss with your physicians and your quality team there. And then I wanted to point out, on March 11th, we will be having a TVT webinar with updates in the registry. It will include the public reporting, the mitral NCD, and the lean data set for version 3.0, and a couple other important updates. We have our webinars and user group calls posted here. And then, of course, Harvest 2 close date will be on May 28th, OR dates through March 30th, 2021. The March training manual is posted. And also, if you have any updates or upgrade ideas for the next upgrade, which will be going live in 2023, please send them over to me, and we'll get those included in the review process when we start it later this summer. So where is your data? I know the big question, and the first question, of course, that came in is, when are we going to get Harvest for Q3, Q4 report? So here you go, Robbie. Harvest 4, the data is in analysis, and it will run for about a week at DCRI. It's expected back to IQVIA in mid-March. The dashboard will be updated by early April. And the reason why there was such a delay, the Harvest closed on December 9th. Data was sent to DCRI on January 19th. That delay was related to this being the first time of the exchange with version 4.20. We shouldn't see those exchange delays in the future. And as you can see, the timeline drastically shortened when we got to Harvest 1. The Harvest closed on February 12th. It went to DCRI the 24th. There's a lot of QCing that goes on here at IQVIA before they can send it over to DCRI. And currently that data is in DCRI in the pre-analysis quality checking. It will go into analysis following Harvest 4. TVT public reporting, the consenting process will run from March 30th to April 30th, to March 1st to April 30th. The data release consent form can be found on the TVT homepage on the NCDR, on the NCDR web page under the TVT section, and you'll be able to get to the data release consent form here. We will be presenting more information on this. Currently, it says reports will be posted to the public in October. Likely it will occur sooner than that, but we'll keep everybody up to date. There will be a specific webinar for TVT public reporting on March 11th at 2 p.m. So if you're available to join, or if you think this is important to somebody in your facility, please be sure to join on with us. It will be recorded and posted just like all of the other webinars. And now I'm going to hand it over to Joe Brower for the IQVIA update. Joe?
Great, thank you very much. All right, good afternoon, everybody. I have a few things to go over today, starting with some updates that went in over the past weekend on February 27th. The first thing listed here is the ACSD regional report is now available under the risk-adjusted dashboard. You can see some screenshots there of where you can go to find that if you haven't done so already. So it's under the risk-adjusted and regional outcomes. And then when you open any of those reports, you'll see a column there for region 2020 that will have those regional results for you. All right, next we have some additional updates that were put through this past weekend, starting with the risk-adjusted report. These were fixes to some problems, STS 5935 under the quality ratings details, the medication section. The word anti-lipid was misspelled, and so that spelling correction has been made. And then on the surgeon composite report, there was an issue, STS 6080, where the drop-down was not providing options to choose surgeon names, and that has been resolved as well. All right, and the next items, these are some additional updates that went through in regard to the risk-adjusted benchmark report calculations. So the items below were updated, STS 5745, initial ventilation less than 6 hours. STS 5787 added initial ventilation hours to all procedures. STS 5934, readmission reason, readmitted within 30 days has been updated. 5956, renal failure has been updated, and 5997, new onset atrial fibrillation has been updated. And then some updates coming for this weekend on March 6th. Some of these items were things that we had hoped to get in this past weekend, and they were pushed to this coming weekend instead. Some of these may look familiar from our last presentation. For the MIPS performance measure report, STS 5696, the MIPS report will exclude transcatheter and canceled cases from the report denominator criteria. And STS 5814, we are updating the exclusion criteria for the tobacco use measures for patients identified as non-smokers who expired in the hospital. And so those two updates will be going through this coming weekend. And then for the non-analyzed participant dashboard report, STS 5829, that report is incorrectly assigning some cases for isolated MVR in the none category, and so fixes will be made to correct that. STS 4942, there is an enhancement coming for the non-analyzed dashboard, which will exclude transcatheter valve procedures before the PROC ID assignment is applied. STS 4262, we are making an, I do think I discussed this last week, but just to reiterate, we are making an update to the operative mortality variable on the participant dashboard. Regarding how it reports the operative mortalities, the way it works now is based purely on the data specifications. So the MTOPD variable is only calculated for records where the status at hospital discharge is either discharged alive, died after discharge, or discharged to hospice. And so what that means is records where you indicated died in hospital for status at discharge are not currently counted in that total. And so we're going to be clarifying that display to make it clear that it's specific to the MTOPD variable definition, and then adding a new line to the report to show the MTOPD plus the died in hospital results as well. And then finally there, STS 5701 in regard to the risk score match report, we are working through specific scenarios that have been reported to us by some vendors for certain records where the risk score calculations did not match ours, and we're making updates to align those. All right, and then we also have a new report being released this coming weekend, the MIPS preview submission report. This report will allow enrolled surgeons to complete their final review and approve their MIPS submission. The submission will then be sent on to the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and an overview document will be posted to the library to help understand how that report works and how to use it, as well as the steps required for CMS submission. So be on the lookout for that report after this weekend's update, and check the library for the overview document to get an idea of how to use that.
Great, thank you, Joe. That was a great update. And also, I just want to clarify that your surgeons have to submit their approval for their approval to be accepted. So make sure that they know that they need to hit the submit approval button. on the platform. Next up, and I'm very excited that we're able to present this today to this group, is coming up now is Dr. Robert Habib, the director of the STS Research Center. He will be presenting on the STS ACSD Longitudinal Outcomes Dashboard, risk adjusted. Before we hand it over to Dr. Habib, I will be launching a poll here for everybody. If you could please respond and just give us a little bit of feedback. We're just wanting to know if you've had a chance to explore the longitudinal risk adjusted dashboard before today's webinar. We'll let this run just for a few seconds and see how this comes across. All right, people are still voting, slowing down. I think that's a pretty good count. So I'm going to stop it there. Thanks everybody for voting. Robert, it looks like 30% of the folks on the call have had a chance to review. 70% have not. So your presentation will be helpful for all that are on. I'm going to let me make this screen bigger for you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
Yep, and I'll give you control here. 1 second. Let me just get over here. And there you go. Okay. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time today to be with us with STS. It's really a privilege to be with this group. I always call the data managers of our STS databases the heart and soul of our the databases, because without you guys we can't do any of what we are doing today, and so thank you for all the efforts. So today is at least we are excited. Hopefully by the end of the presentation you'll be also excited about this new feature that is the fruit of working closely, STS working closely with our IQVIA colleagues in order to bring this to you. Let me see if I have mouse control. Hopefully we were able to do that part correctly.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks good. Okay, great. So once you sign on to your to the IQVIA platform, I guess you reach this landing page, and under the analytics function, there's operational reports. So I'm going to click on that, and you have a menu of reports that STS and IQVIA have made available to you, and I'm sure that you guys go here quite often. And the new report is this one, Longitudinal Outcomes Dashboard, risk adjusted. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and that should take you to the longitudinal report like primary landing page. And here you have to do a couple of things. As you can see here under the analyzed data range, you have an option. You can select from either looking at the entire data set that's available under cumulative, or you can select a specific harvest 3-year period, as you can see. For the sake of demonstration, let's select the cumulative data set. Once you've made the selection, all you need to do is apply parameters, and that's going to take us to the dashboard. And now, one thing I want to mention here is that I'm going to do like a few-minute walkthrough of the main features. And after that, we'll open it up to questions and answers, and I'll be more than happy to try and answer them as best I can. So now we're going into the first view. It will always default to your isolated cabbage operative mortality view. Now, to maximize the real estate for your dashboard, a neat trick is you can right-click on the here and say Open Page in New Page, and what's going to do, it's going to expand your dashboard view, and hopefully that's going to work.
I think it's thinking about it.
Yeah.
might just be, here we go.
All right. So usually when you're working, usually it's going to be a lot faster than that. Please, I hope so.
Yeah. I think it's because we're sharing the screen and we're doing a
Right.
webinar at the same time. It's
Yeah.
just pulling a little bit more.
Right. So I'm,
Let's hope.
let's hope. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
Promise it doesn't take this long in real life.
Yeah, it does not really. So one thing whenever here is again, so we've landed on the isolated cabbage for a given site, for your own site. But since you signed on through your own credentials, you go in and it will land you in the isolated cabbage cohort, and with the outcome of first outcome to pop up is operative mortality. And one feature that I want you to know about this dashboard is you have the flexibility to kind of change. This is not working as well as I would like it to. Anyway, so this dashboard will show you 4 panels, the counts for your procedure of choice. Okay, and by counts, you can see total counts as well as your outcome counts. In this case, the pink is showing the operative mortality counts. So if we were to click, things are slower than usual, but if we click on the between any of these 2 points, it should update and it should give us the actual counts, as you can see here. The counts of how many isolated cabbages in this case for 2017, and you see that there were 6 mortalities out of 568 or something, if I'm reading that correctly. Now, and so on and so forth. Once you know the actual observed counts of outcome and the total, in that subgroup of patients, in this case, isolated cabbage, you can, the green curve, the green curve that you see here is showing you the expected mortality based on the risk models, STS risk models for all of these patients. And the blue curve here is actually displaying the observed mortality outcome in this case. Obviously, observed divided by expected, that will give you what you all know very much, a lot about observed to expected ratio. And this is your observed to expected ratio at for each of these calendar years for isolated cabbage operative mortality. We display the one line, the unity line here, just so remember, if you are below this line, you're better than expected. If you are above this line, you are worse than expected as a site. And given that we have all this, in this last panel, we can calculate the risk-adjusted outcome. In this case, what's your risk-adjusted mortality rate for isolated cabbage? And this is what's displayed here in the blue curve. Because you are below the line of 1, an OE ratio, we expect that your risk-adjusted mortalities are going to be less than the STS-wide. So this would be the corresponding national data for isolated cabbage over this time period. You may be interested in looking at the data on a quarterly basis instead of on by calendar year basis. So I just go up here to the aggregation selection and choose quarter. And all of a sudden, as you can see now, your data is displaying on a quarterly basis rather than just a yearly basis. And everything else, as I described before. So counts, outcome counts, observed and expected rates, OE ratios, risk-adjusted data, both national and for your own site. Now, let's say you want to look at your data for the isolated aortic valve replacements. You just simply select from this very important filter. This very important filter is going to show you all the main procedure IDs, PROC IDs 1 through 8. For PROC ID 6, right now, we don't have yet a risk model implemented, and that's why you won't, if you were to choose this one, you won't see expected rates and you won't see OE ratios and things like that. But for the most part, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8, you will have the same kind of data displayed. Now, this is all I've showed you so far is for operative mortality. If you want to look at the data for stroke, for renal failure, for prolonged ventilation, and so on and so forth, as you know, we have 9 STS risk models that for all the major mortality and major morbidities, as well as length of stay, metrics. You simply select, you select permanent stroke, and the data will, in the same fashion, will display for stroke or for prolonged vent. If I choose prolonged vent, it's going to go and show the data for prolonged vents. The other thing that, as you saw, while this is doing the calculations, as you saw, there is a menu of filters to the left that hopefully will reappear shortly. And here we go. It just reappeared. And by the way, you can also display the data before I leave this by month, but we won't do that for now. But if you are interested to looking at a very specific subgroup of patients, for example, you are interested in men over 65, let's say. So you want to see the prolonged vent data for the isolated AVR patients, but you want strictly to look at older men. So you select the age grouping and you select the male patients, and everything will be recalculated, and the data that will display will be specific to AVR replacements in older men. Okay, there are other filters that in similar fashion you can, for example, say we don't want to look at reoperations, we want only first operations, or we want only our elective cases or urgent cases, and so on and so forth. You can select from these as many as possible. You can select 4 or 5, as many as you have available to you, and always the patient groups will be recalculated, and based on these groupings, everything else will be recalculated. So in summary, we have a set of intuitive filters for you to select from to drill down on the specific subcohort of patients, and you always have this consistent set of displays, and you can have it for all 9 outcomes, and you can change the aggregation by year, by quarter, by month. Now, as you are doing your quality improvement initiatives and meetings and things like that, it's going to be very helpful to you to be able to take these some of these graphics and put them in your own PowerPoint presentation or your own PDF report. You have a variety of options if you go under File, Export, and you can, as you can see, you can send your report to PDF or to PowerPoint. Let's select PowerPoint, for example. And here you have a lot of options. You can say, I want only the active page, what you're looking at, in this case, prolonged vent. Or you can say, I want the entire report, all pages. And I would select always to, filter settings. Always make sure you include filter settings and page titles, so that this way, the page titles in this case would say prolonged ventilation, and this would tell you that you've set filters that you are looking. The filters will tell you that you're looking at specifically at the aortic valve replacements, men who are older than 65 years or older. So, and then you can simply hit OK, and basically your entire report. So you have 9 different pages, each page with 4 different panels. So that's a total of 36 panels that will go and be exported to a PowerPoint presentation that you can go ahead and use in your reporting and in your quality meetings, in your meetings with the surgeons, one-on-one, or in mass, for the entire group. You can do all that activities. I will stop here and maybe show other features by answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I'll give this right back to you. Oh, it's still gonna run, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, I kind of, yeah, let me try and answer some question. This is
Okay.
usually, maybe we should have chose one page instead of not one pages.
That's okay.
But that's okay. We learned our lesson.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna, let me scroll through some of these questions here. So, okay, here's one. In the longitudinal, I wonder if we can just cancel this here. Let's see.
So yeah, let's cancel.
Oh, there.
That. Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah. Very
Okay.
good. Excellent.
Okay,
I
so
still have control. I
you
still
do.
have control. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, good.
we're sharing control. So
Okay.
the first question regarding these reports, and we're going to answer we'll go to your questions first, and then we'll answer the other questions. In the longitudinal diagrams, is there an option to get data for all surgeries?
Excellent questions. And the answer is yes. If you were to select all surgeries here, okay, and let's do that, in fact. And something what you're going to see is you're going to get the counts. So you're going to get, in this case, we're looking at prolonged ventilation. So we are going to get, and let's give it a second, it's doing. So we're going to get a count, overall total counts, and we are going to get the total counts of prolonged vent, which is more than 24 hours. But notice what's going to happen here. What's going to happen here is that these are going to be blank. The risk-adjusted results are going to be blank, and you don't see the expected outcome rates. And the reason for that is when you include all cases, okay, what you are including cases with and without STS risk models. For example, if you have an aortic dissection case, it's included here, and it's included here, and included here, but it's not, we don't have an STS risk model, so we can't calculate expected mortality, and therefore we can't do any of these calculations. Now, one thing that's going to happen with the next iteration of this dashboard, and once we receive your excellent feedback and suggestions as we try to go to the next generation, what we are going to do is modify this feature into so that, let's say you want to select all cases that you have STS risk models for. For example, PROC ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. We have risk models. Imagine this was, you can select all of them simultaneously. Then we can have the total counts, outcomes, and everything will be displayed with risk adjustment in that case. That is coming soon to a screen near you, okay? So
can I ask, in addition to that, Robert, are other filters going to be added in the future?
Yeah, I mean, potentially we can certainly add other filters. There's a limit how many we can do. I mean, if there is a good argument for adding a certain type of filters, for example, I would throw out an example: off pump, on pump for cabbage cases. Okay, there may be a group that is really interested in this, so we might consider other filters. We are happy to receive your suggestions. We can't promise that we will fulfill everyone, because you can imagine this list can grow and grow and grow. There's a limit how many we would want to include. And before I go to the next question, one feature I forgot to talk about is, I'm going to go back briefly to isolated cabbage. But do you see these gray bars here? I need to show you what these are. These are neat features. Let's say you want to zoom in to 2019 and 2020 data only. One thing you can do is actually do something like this.
That works in near real time when you're not sharing your screen.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is that you're going to lose all that data and you're going to zoom in on this data when that happens. Similarly, you can do that with your y-axis or with your both ordinates, okay, the y and the x. You can do that. And you can do that with each of these panels as well, okay? Another thing that you can do, you may want to kind of change. You may like your O to E ratio plot to be like thinner than the other. You can certainly do that. You can manipulate these before, for example, before exporting to your PowerPoint. You may kind of want to redesign your page a little bit, so you have that flexibility. Another thing, another feature that I will mention before I field the next question is if you go to this area and right click, you're going to see that you have another opportunity here to export. And you can export the visualization, and basically you're talking about this visualization, either to an image, a JPEG or a TIFF file or something, or a PDF. But also what I want to focus here is on this. Okay, you can select Microsoft Excel export, and what's that going to give you? It's actually going to give you the graph as well as the actual data points, the data values. So if you want to create your own graphics, you have the data to do that. Okay.
Does it give it to you in a table?
Yes, and
cool.
let's so we can do that.
Let's
If we select that. And you can tell it export, and you can select what you want it to export, and you export, and it's going to take you to an Excel. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. And then you're going to see here at the bottom of your screen that you have an Excel. We're going to click on it.
I think it's behind your screen now.
Right, yeah. And let's go back to that one.
Oh, cool.
And you see that the data, it came out in a table here for you. All right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you have all your filters on the left there.
Yeah, and let me see if I can get back to the other screen.
You have to. It wants you to send feedback. Just hit X out of that.
X out of that. So
yeah, the red circle.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I get rid of this? I can move it maybe to my other screen temporarily. Okay, so we're back here, and I'm ready to field the next question.
I'm gonna take the mouse just for a second here.
Okay.
Let me do this for you. We'll make this in the bar down there. Okay, so that was Julie's question. So are we not able to look at just 1 year at a time? So Robert showed that you can manipulate these down here, and you can look at just 1 year at a time.
Oh, yes. Right. That's another excellent question. Let's say all you care about is OE ratio. See those two double arrows here? Just click on them. And what's going to happen is you're just going to have that one image, and you can take a look at it. And if you want to go back, all you do, go back to these double arrows, you click on them, and you're back in the main view.
And in that larger view, there was still the 2 gray bars on the X and Y axis, so you can zoom in just 1 year if you wanted to. Okay.
Exactly. So
thank you. I'm going to take the mouse.
I'm going to go on a limb and say, when you are doing this on your own computer with your own data, and I'm not trying to control remotely Carol's computer. I think you're going to find out that this goes much faster than what you're seeing right now. Okay.
Yeah, it's very fast. It is very fast. Okay, let me see if we have any more questions here for you. Hold on. Answer live, done.
If somebody wants to ask a live question and wants us, they can also raise their hand, right? And we can hear their voice correct?
Yeah, they can raise their hand now. Yes. Okay. Hold on. So, and this is a question I think that was brought up by others, Robert. It says the timing option of most recent harvest by quarter ends June 30th instead of December 31st. So I think we had talked about.
Right.
providing clarification.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a very good question, and maybe we can be more precise in our wording and before we go into the dashboard, and we will do that. We'll make that change to the where the landing page for the dashboard, rather than say the most recent data, we will say to the last analyzed data. Okay, so yeah, so you're talking here about most recent harvest. Everything that we are showing you in this dashboard is after analysis, and this is basically data consistent with the risk-adjusted reports that you. So this data has gone from IQVIA to DCRI and has come back post-analysis, and therefore there's always a delay. As you know, you have not yet received the results for. I think Harvest 4 of 2020. It's coming soon. So once that is received back from DCRI, what we are going to do is update this dashboard so that we are going to add that harvest 3-year period as an option and adjust the cumulative so that it will go another quarter. Okay, or 2 quarters, depending on how many harvests we add. So you can imagine that the amount of data that we will be able to display in the future with the cumulative option is going to keep growing and keep growing and growing and growing. So when we have the Harvest 2 of 2021, you can imagine that we're going to have 2021 data, right? It would be the first quarter of 2021, and so on and so forth.
That's great. Thank you, Robert. Okay. A couple questions that came through regarding if a filter will be added to sort by surgeon. So I don't believe.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. I mean, send us your suggestions. I mean, the changes are not going to happen in the next week or two, but what we are trying to do is gather feedback and suggestions and consider as many and try to satisfy as many suggestions as possible in our next iteration. One thing that we already know is something that I talked about with these procedure choice. We're going to change this filter type so that you can select multiple of these at the same time. But with that, it's going to entail more you as data manager being very careful, because if you were to check, if this becomes a checkbox and rather than a radio button, and you select 2 things, everything that you're looking at, 2 procedures or 3 procedures, you are be looking now at composite data that's going to cover 2 or 3 or 4 procedures, depending on how many you've selected in here.
It's a great point. That also leads into a question regarding if we could add a filter in for mitral, if they would be able to show mitral valve repair and replacement together. And that's what you were just saying, is that something that's coming in the near future where they'll be able to apply 2 procedures to the one filter.
Yeah, so if you want both the repairs and replacements in one and combined, yes. In the next generation of this dashboard, you'll be able to select 3 and 7, and that will give you that.
Okay. Thank you. And then it says, could you add the population to the page showing the data in case we want to download it? So I think as you saw when we downloaded it to an Excel, it did print the population that you were your filters were set to. Do you think I understand?
Right. Okay, so yeah, if by population you want to know that, let's say you printed this page, okay, and you want to know that this is really the isolated cabbage, all isolated cabbage patients. If you don't select any of these filters, if you keep all, it will just ignore. But when you go to File and try export to, let's say, a PowerPoint, remember I told you, remember to check filters. If you check the filters, it's going to tell you at the bottom of the page, it's going to tell you you're looking at isolated cabbage, men greater than 65, elective, let's say. Whatever filters you chose in here, it's going to tell you, give you a summary what you're looking at in those images. I hope that answered the question.
I think so. That was helpful. And this is, I think one, oh, let me see this mouse real quick here. I think one person's asking, are surgeons allowed to view this report? So your surgeons do have access to their report through the IQVIA platform. Have them email Jane at stsdb@sts.org, and I'll ask Leanne to put that in the chat box. So you have that. You'll have that. And then Jane's going to try to answer some of the questions in the chat box related to surgeon composite. So she'll be typing answers in. Thank you, Jane.
May I add to thank you, Carol, but if I
Yeah.
may, if we were to add surgeon as a filter, now that I'm recollecting why we did not put it in this first iteration, and we give surgeons the access to this, what does that mean effectively? If you have a multi-surgeon group or site, it means that a surgeon can select, use that filter and select to look at other surgeons' data separate from their own, not as part of a combined data set for everybody. So that is a sensitive issue that we would have to find a way to a workaround if that's the case. If we're going to allow that as a filter over here, so.
Yeah, I agree with you. It also gets into when you have smaller practices, and if we only allow the filter for the surgeon who's logging in, where they could see just their data and then the entire group's data, when it's a smaller group, they would be able to tell what their partners' outcomes were as well. So it's very sensitive. It's a very sensitive issue.
Yeah.
It's a
good question. That we have Jeanette that raised her hand and we can hear her voice.
Okay, let's see here. Let me find her. Oh.
Wow.
Put it down.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody raise your hand so we can hear you.
Linda's got her hand raised, Carol.
Okay, let's see here. All right, Linda. Oh, she put her hand down. I think people are messing with me. All right. I think people are just testing out that raise hand function. So this is a good question coming from Linda. Actually, I think it was the same Linda as Linda Halpin. And it's a good question. I think basically what she's asking is, will this longitudinal, right now the longitudinal dashboard is based on the return of data from DCRI to IQVIA, and there's oftentimes a lag from it being real time. Is the dashboard going to aim at being more real time in the future?
Yeah, I think Linda sent that question earlier and I may have replied to it, and it's a superb question. I could see a site who are very, very active in their quality improvement initiatives and they want faster access to data. So one approach to doing this is potentially to have a hybrid where we would combine analyzed data, for example, this data, and imagine if we have the ongoing, current, or more current data being added live to the dashboard, to the non-analyzed dashboard. So that what that means, it means combining data set, analyzed and non-analyzed, and making them available for quote unquote real-time viewing of data. Now, granted, we would have to put an asterisk next to the most recent non-analyzed data, meaning that it is based on your vendor software risk estimates, not QC'd and analyzed by DCRI estimates. But that is another step in the future, but I could see the value for it, and I thank you for the question, Linda. An excellent question, and we really thought about it. We are trying to get there, but you just have to be a bit more patient with STS. By the way, this is only the beginning of dashboards, of interactive dashboards. You can imagine how not only outcomes, but NQF measures, resource utilization measures like blood transfusion, like ICU times and things like that. We hope to bring those different dashboards to you in the near term or intermediate term at least.
That's great. I see Chris has a hand up here. Let's see if this is a real person who wants to talk to us. Chris, you may have to unmute yourself if you'd like to talk, but you are able to. Are you there?
Carol, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. How
All
are
right,
you?
cool.
Thank
I'm
you.
great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. It's good to
Hi,
hear you.
Dr. Habib. I
Hi,
had a
Chris.
question about putting the name or the population on the sheet. And what I'm talking about is if you go to the right upper quadrant and export your entire report, you do not see the population. You can
Right.
find,
Yes.
so that's the
100%,
one.
yeah.
Sorry.
100% true, and you're right. And this is why I pointed out to this other option of going to file export and select your filters, because that will give you that added ability. But that doesn't mean that we should not explore defaulting that into the export report, because I see the advantage of just click on this and export the entire report.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, but so I took that under advisement. I believe you sent that question to us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and but for the time being, use the other facility, but I didn't forget your question. We're gonna try and add it here as well.
All right, thank you, sir.
Hopefully it works.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, this is from our friend Cindy Piotr at Northwestern. Can you create your own filters for dashboards?
Oh, hi, Cindy. You always, I knew you'll ask a tough one, but unfortunately, I don't see how you can create your own filters with this dashboard. You know, you would have to have your own Spotfire account. You would have to have your own access to your own data. And it's very difficult to give you the national data to benchmark against, as you know. It's because this requires patient level data, and that's not easy for us to give out. But excellent question. Let's hope we can get the filters you want added for you.
Yes, send us your list, Cindy. Robert's always open to your suggestions. Next question, will there be a drill down to patient info from within this longitudinal dashboard?
I see.
So if they want to see their, their mortality, who these two folks were here that passed.
Not in the plans, but is it, it's worth exploring if it's technically feasible to do that. I could see how you guys are used to that in the non-analyzed dashboard. I believe if you can click on the, let's say the two, and it will show you the two patients that met the outcome of operative mortality. It's not in the plans. It's worth exploring. You could easily go to the, let's say you have two operative mortalities in Q1 of 2020. You can easily get those two in the non-analyzed report, or in the where Carol is taking us right now. So you have that feasibility elsewhere. I could see how you'd want to do it right there and then, and I'll take that under advisement, and we'll see, explore if that's possible.
Thanks, Robert. Victoria is asking if we could show one more time how to get to the dashboard. So this is what I was going to show, is in the IQVIA home, when you log in there, you'll go to the Analytics Center, the operational report. And when you click on this, your 6 reports will come up. And this is the Longitudinal Outcomes Dashboard Risk Adjusted Report. This is where you'll select your parameters and then apply, and then it will populate a default to isolated cabbage group. I hope that helps. Okay, and I think you showed this. It seems that there's 4 graphs per page. Can you export just one of those panels?
Yes, definitely. One way of doing it is by first. Do I have the mouse control?
Yes, sir. You do.
Okay. If you click on this here, and it's going to take you to just this one view, and you can right click and export. You say visualization to image. Hopefully that's going to be fairly fast.
It'll be great in the future if there's some type of save function, so where sites can build their own queries and then automatically run those queries based off of this type of thing. It might be something to look at in the future. That's a nice report.
Right. Yeah. So again, we will welcome suggestions, but don't give them too many ideas.
Sorry. I got lots of ideas, Robert.
Okay. Yeah. So let's close this one.
Okay.
Okay, and let's go. We can go back to our full views. Come on.
I saw it there. There it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I-
Deborah, as
here
you're doing that, Deborah's next question is, how soon after the harvest is the longitudinal dashboard updated? So currently it will be updated when that data comes back from the analysis at DCRI and IQVIA uploads it.
Yeah.
To the platform.
But that's a good question that, you know, I would hope by the time your risk adjusted reports are up, we will time it so that they are simultaneously up together, at least in this current, you know, because it's not automatic. It's not like the file is sent by DCRI today and it's received by IQVIA. It doesn't mean that this automatically happens. There are some steps that need to be taken to update, to add. Basically what you'll be doing is adding the new cases to this dashboard data set. So that's a good question, and let's try and give you the answer soon and by some mechanism. But I would hope by the time the risk adjusted report is up, this would be updated as well.
That's great. And I think Jane, I don't know if you wanted to. Oh, I see Jennifer has her hand raised, so I'm going to unmute you here, Jennifer. Just have, oh, wrong person. There you go. Just have to unmute yourself. Feel free. I don't know who I'm unmuting. Jennifer or Chris, somebody's being unmuted. Okay. Jennifer, are you there? All right, let's see if she's able to join on here. Jane, I didn't know if you wanted to ask this question, if you wanted me to ask this of Robert, but it said, do all adult cardiac users have access to this report? So I think those that have access to the longitudinal dashboard, I think the sites or the people that have access to the reports, and I'm not quite sure of the roles, you would probably be the one to answer that one, Jane, sorry. But yes, everybody who has access to the reports would have access to the longitudinal dashboard, including the surgeon. So if your surgeons need help accessing IQVIA platform, Leanne has put the email address in the chat box.
Yeah.
Then there's a question here from somebody. It says, my CMO is interested in Lima usage and peer group, but for peer group, we're going to call that the like group, because that's what STS is. We use the term like group for like group comparison. Is it possible here? Is it possible to do that here for Lima usage?
No, this is the outcomes, risk adjusted outcomes longitudinal report. But I did mention earlier that you know, coming to you soon, I hope, would be, we're going to add other dashboards, one of which would be the quality metrics, NQF measures, which Lima use, I think, would be one of them. And so that's when we have that available, that would be available to you. Also, we have we'll have resource utilization, other resource utilization measures. We're even looking to, in the intermediate term, giving you the patient by patient variable life adjusted and QSUM displays, and that should be revolutionize your quality initiatives. But that's still in the planning phase, but we are actively working on it. So stay tuned, please.
Great. We have a caller with who's unmuted who would like to ask a question. Please go ahead.
Hi, I would like to ask, thank you for all this. This looks amazing and all your hard work with this. Is there a companion guide or any kind of, tutorial that goes along with this that we could also read through? Because it's a lot of information to just take in.
Yeah. So
Can take us step by step.
yeah.
Thank
Can you tell us who's speaking, please?
Oh, my name's Diane.
Diane, thank you for the question. Excellent. Yes, we are planning to add here a kind of a manual. That's one thing. Two, we are going to put this webinar as is actually going to become a resource itself, so that somebody can re-listen to it. Another way of learning it is to actually spend some time and try manipulating things, and also please don't be shy, send us questions if you run into trouble. IQVIA and STS, if needed, will do our best to answer any questions. But so yes, there will be a manual. It will, and there will be this webinar will be made available to you to re-listen to, and we ask you to explore it as well and send us your suggestions.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, Robert, we have, I think a good question here is what's included in the reoperation category? Does it include non-cardiac reops, or is it in reoperation? I believe it's the STS definition for that we use in the endpoints.
Right. Well, this one, no, this filter, if the question is related to this filter right here, first/reoperation, this is saying, is this, for example, isolated CABG, is this a first CABG or is this a second CABG? So if it's a reoperation, if you select reoperation, so it's going to give you patients that are undergoing not their first CABG, but their second or third. Or let me restate that. Their CABG is not their first cardiac operation.
Yeah,
So
we have a very we have a very detailed definition of what how to code reoperation in the training manual, and it actually involves looking at the space that's being entered. So if the patient had a previous descending aorta procedure and is now coming in for a CABG, that will be the first that's considered the first cardiac surgery for that patient for that procedure, because it's a different space. But I'll refer you to the training manual for the definition of what cardiovascular surgery, how we capture that. But yeah, that's good.
But frankly, this filter is based on the variable incidence. If all of you have seen it when you as data managers and you collect their data, collect data and incidence. So this follows that variable. And how we are really showing the data, the Q quality check data that is for that variable, the variable incidence. And if it's a 1, as you know, it's a first operation. If it's a 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, it's a reoperation.
Okay, I was going to pull it up, but it's okay. I know we're getting close, and I just wanted to take one more question, if that's okay, Robert.
Sure.
Our friend Diana Alejo from Hopkins, she has a good question as always. Thank you for the overview. Can you please define the cumulative scope? It appears it only covers STS risk-adjusted reported timeframes, for example, through June 2020. When will the entire year be available? Can you also obtain the rates on the STS? Can you also obtain the rates on the STS other category? What does the option NA and none refer to?
All right, multiple questions. Hi, Diane, how are you? Long time. I'll try to remember all the questions. So the data for the next harvest, I would say we are probably about a month away to add 1 quarter of data, and then a little more than that to add the harvest 1, of 2021 data to this dashboard. So the cumulative option is going to start from January 27 onwards. We're going to keep adding. So the cumulative option is all going to keep adding to this more and more quarters. As far as will you be able, if you select NA, it means it's not neither 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, or 8. Okay, so it's kind of the other cases for you. So if you select the NA, let's try and do that. What's going to happen is this is what you're going to see. You don't, because NA, we don't have risk models, you can't see OE ratios, you can't see risk adjusted data, but what you can see are actually your counts of the other procedures. By that, it's not one of these main STS PROC IDs. That's your counts, these are your outcomes, and these are your observed outcome. In this case, we're looking at reoperation. Let's take a look at operative mortality. Let's take a look at permanent stroke, and so on and so forth. Yes, you can look at observed dates and observed counts for other. Hopefully that answered your questions. If I missed any, did I miss any?
She just
Carol?
added in one other question is, will the multi-select be an option for other filters other than PROC ID?
Diane, please suggest. For some, it doesn't make sense. For example, for gender, I mean, you are either a male or female, at least for the vast majority.
I think she's most interested in status.
If it's in status, we can certainly make that multiple select. Please send us your suggestion. Look, we could make our life easy and make all of these multi-select, but what that means is you as users, data managers, have to be very careful, because you can't forget to unselect something the next time you want to look at something else. Okay, so the only way to do that, to default back, is to, there is a way at the bottom here where you can unselect all filters. Okay, and it will reset everything. So the way to do it, I think, if you do this, yes, if you do that, it's gonna take you back to so that everything is all. As you can see, very large counts here now. Okay, now you select isolated cabbage, and you can unselect the filters and do that. So yeah, we can change these to checklist multi-select. And yes, it makes sense for the status ones. You may want to say, oh, elective and urgent, combine them or something. Good question as usual.
Yep. Thank you. So I think we're at time, Robert. So I know we have quite a few questions left. We can certainly review these and see if there's some way we can get answers to people that had questions related to the dashboard. If you are you comfortable ending now and managing the rest of the questions that way, or?
I'm very comfortable doing it that way. If you want me to stick around for another minute or two, I'm happy to do so.
Okay. Do you have 10 more minutes? We can see if we can get through a few more.
Sure.
Okay,
Let's try and do that.
Okay, if folks want to stick around, we can see if we can get through a few more.
Mm-hmm.
Go back up here to the beginning. Okay. Are you able to do a breakdown of readmissions, or only the variables shown on the screen? So that, as Robert said, those right now we do not have the readmissions listed. We're only looking at the endpoints for the models.
Readmission data, Carol, is will probably be part of our utilization report. Imagine we are going to have a dashboard like this, that instead of looking at our main outcomes, we are going to look at resource utilization. It's going to be readmission to ICU, reintubation, readmission to hospital, blood transfusion, length of stay, numeric, not categorical, and so on and so forth. That is coming to you soon. If you remember, we had something like this as a as a tool for research utilization that we released back in April. Something that like that for your own site, benchmarked against the national data, is planned for the near term or intermediate term.
That's great. That's really great. Thank you. Do our surgeons have access to the longitudinal dashboard on their IQVIA sign-in? And yes, the surgeons and data managers should have access to those reports. Is there a way to export all surgery type, isolated cabbage valves, etc., without having to click on each surgery type and export one at a time? So
in the next iteration, yes, not in the current type of filter, but once we change the procedure surgery type filter into a checklist, you can select any combination you want at that time and do it. The one thing I would caution about is if you select anything that we don't have a risk-adjusted risk model for, then you cannot get risk-adjusted data, such as what you just showed, Carol. For PROC ID 6, we don't have yet the risk model implemented. Therefore, you can only look at observed data, no risk-adjusted data. So as long as you know how you're selecting your cohorts, you'll be able to do so.
great. Thank you. We have 3 facilities, 3 PIDs, 3 participant numbers. Will it be possible in the future to be able to look at all combined? And that is something I think that is something that we're looking at for future enhancements. Not at this time, but it's on our radar that we've had a few requests on that.
Yes.
So it would be very helpful.
In fact, I think Lucretia has a question for us. She said, can you show how to export the graph to the table/spreadsheet again? Let me try and do that. Okay. So I go to the where I have the mouse control, right?
Yes.
So I let's take this graph, for example.
Oh, I guess not.
Yeah, please.
Okay, hold on. Ready? Here it comes.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So if I click at the right in this read area here, right click, it gives me these options and say Microsoft Excel export. I'm going to select that. And okay, so we select what actually we want to send out. Okay, so export charts as an image, export created date. You select what you want to be included in your export, and then you export that.
And I think the best way to really get used to what's in there and what all the function is to just play around with it and see what works for you. Because I think there's a lot of different functionality that will help sites.
And you can see how the data was exported, and here's where you have the data specific to this graph exported for you.
It's wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure I understand this. Okay, the data available in these reports is wonderful, but it's hard. Okay, so we talked about using older data, and so that we're looking at more timely how we can provide risk-adjusted and non-analyzed data in the same dashboard. So that is something that STS is looking at.
Yeah, we are looking at, but remember one thing, please. Let's say you as a site are very good at putting in your own data, okay? Putting in your own data every day. And let's say we come up with a solution that you can take what's currently available and add to it new data. You can see your own data, but the benchmarking against the national data is dependent on everybody else doing what you are doing at your own site as well. So it is possible, but it's going to require you helping yourself out by being very timely in your data entry, because everything has to be entered and then QC'd, and then it becomes part of your non-analyzed report. What you're asking for is a combination of this analyzed data plus any very fresh data that has not yet gone to DCRI for analysis. But you want that flexibility of showing that with those results for your quality improvement initiatives. Totally understand it. It makes a lot of sense. It's a different solution. And then we are thinking about how to bring you something like that, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Great. Thank you. That's very good advice on making sure the data is updated frequently at the sites and cleaned up quickly. Sheena is asking about putting mark. She said she had a suggestion, putting mark labels so when they export the values, they're there instead of only the values you hover over. So as you saw, I clicked on this and the values populated here. And then when I went to export it to Excel and I put export markings, it exported with the values available showing there.
Yeah.
So I think
Right.
that functions available in all of the exports.
Right. And if you try to, let's say, instead of exporting to Excel, if you want to send it as an image or to PowerPoint, if the numbers are showing here, your exported PowerPoint visualization will also have those numbers. By the way, let's say if you want to get rid of those numbers, you can click right in this region here. And
What I was trying to do, I couldn't figure it out.
yeah. So I don't think I have control anymore.
Oh, you
Okay.
do.
Okay. So you see, I clicked in this area and the numbers disappeared. Put them back again. I click here, they appear. Click here, they disappear.
Got it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mhm.
Here's a good question from Bonnie. Will isolated cabbage process measures be included in the longitudinal data? So internal memory, beta block,
Right.
beta blockade.
That's basically asking for a dashboard for the NQF measures and quality measures, and that is planned. So imagine instead of looking at and in the bottom panel here, you can see the outcomes. We will have a dashboard that is, rather than longitudinal outcomes dashboard, it would be your NQF measures dashboard. And then
I think your screen went away. Hold on. There you go. Okay.
So imagine us having a different dashboard specific to quality measure NQF measures, such as IME use and beta blockers and so on and so forth. But that is in the plans. We don't have it for you, but the idea is that it would look something very similar to this. And so with your familiarity with this first dashboard, you'll become rapidly experts in future dashboards as well. That meant for different uses. For example, again, resource utilization, quality measures, as well as we're discussing bringing in QSUM displays and things like that.
Very good. Thank you, Robert. That's great. Mm-hmm. I think we're probably going to stop here since we've gone over 15 minutes, and I know folks, they plan their schedules. So
yeah.
Thank you very much, Robert, for the information on this. It was wonderful to have you here, and I'm sure you'll be a hot topic for future webinars, and we'll probably need you to come back and explain some more to us or answer some additional questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And it's exciting to see what all of the work in the last year has paid off to do with the IQVIA transition and everybody's blood, sweat, and tears that has gone into it.
All right. Thank you very much, Carol. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience and your questions. And I hope you liked what you saw, and happy dashboarding, and look forward to a future webinar where we can join and answer further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so folks, we have the the IQVIA support plan. Make sure that if you have any questions for IQVIA and you've already submitted a ticket, to please include the ticket number that IQVIA gave you. And then the resources, the STS National Database webpage, tech supported IQVIA, and the database feedback forms. My email is here, ccrone@sts.org. And then we have the dashboard. Any questions related to the dashboard functionality, you can send them to ststechsupport@iqvia.com. And then any operational questions related to surgeon access or the surgeon level reports, if your surgeons don't have their login or they've lost their login, please email stsdb@sts.org and Jane will help. Jane and her team will help get you access, or your surgeons access where they're needed. And then I just want to say, get out and enjoy the sun. This is my bike. I enjoy doing that. And these are some of my friends that I ride with a couple times a week when the sun is nice. So make sure you get out and enjoy the sun and get some fresh air and enjoy time with friends and family. Please be safe and healthy. And thanks again for coming to this webinar. I'll go through the questions and see if we have any, if there's anything I can further explain, or maybe some ideas for the user group call where we can go through these in more detail. So thanks again, everybody. I hope that you have a great day. Please take care, and we will talk again soon. All right, thank you. And thank you to all my panelists for joining.